What's up, Dose of Dion? What's up, Rad? Hey, my name is Michael Banks. Please vote for me every day at FordHallOfFans.com. Boot up.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Lions' future, specifically this upcoming offseason and maybe the direction the Lions should look to take this offseason as a whole. We're also going to take a little bit of a look at the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that went from winning 4 games in 2020 to the very next season being in the Super Bowl this year at 10-7. So let's get it started.
The city's been down and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to a video. Glad you guys are here. And I'm excited for this one because we're going to be talking some offseason because I've been trying to dive into free agency, free agent targets. I'm sure we'll have some of those videos coming out soon as well. Of course, I've been diving into the draft a lot recently. DoseOfDN.com. I continue to update that. I really got to update receiver, though, because I have tons of notes. I just haven't typed them up yet. But DoseOfDN.com, if you guys want to check it out, I got a lot of notes there for quarterbacks right now. So if you're on that, hey, what quarterback should we get? If you want to know how I feel about him, you could check it out on that website. And I have started a new tab for free agency. I'm just not super deep into it yet. I really only have like 1 or 2 players in there, but it's going to go. However, I want to talk a little bit about the Lions' future, specifically this upcoming offseason, a little bit past that, beyond that, but specifically this upcoming offseason and maybe what the Lions' priority should be to continue to build this thing, push this thing in the right direction, because this is the hard part. I mean, I heard someone else say it, but this is the truth. This is the hard part. You know, you have last year, you build a foundation. We see the young players. You get some nice wins at the end of the year. You start to pick up some steam. 3 wins. Okay, not good enough. Will never be good enough in the words of Brad Holmes. But now it's the hard part because now really you start to feel some of that pressure. You're into year 2. Like, it's go time. I mean, this is a result-based business, which I'm pretty sure most businesses are, but that's just the end of it. You have to be successful. You have to win football game. How should the Lions approach this offseason and continue to build this thing the direction they want to go with also not messing up their future? Because what did Brad Holmes say? He said this is a multi-year plan. All right, we want to be consistent. We want to build this thing for multiple years. We don't want to have this one spike of a year and then we fall back down because we went all in this one season. We want to consistently be a competitive team. And immediately you think of a team like the New Orleans Saints, who every single year with Drew Brees were usually winning the division. If not winning the division, they were winning at least 11 games. I mean, heck, even this last year, they about made the playoffs, and I don't even know who their quarterback was. They won 9 games with Trevor Siemian and Jameis Winston and Ian Book, I think. I mean, it was craziness going on over there. But they still have that consistency, and that's the direction the Lions are trying to get to. I guess you could also point to the LA Rams as well. But we brought this up in our stream yesterday on Last Second Sports. You guys could check it out. We talked a little bit about the Cincinnati Bengals and how they got to the position that they're at now. And I see some similarities within things that the Lions necessarily can't control in their division, things like that, but also some similarities in how the Lions can learn from what Cincinnati has done and how they've gotten to the spot that they've gotten. Now, it's not going to be the exact same thing. We are in some different financial situations. We have much less money to spend. We also do have a quarterback that's under contract, not a rookie deal. So we're in a much different place, and especially last year, we really didn't have much money to spend at all. We just gave out tons of 1-year deals. So we're in a different spot than where the Bengals are, but I do believe there are some similarities and things that the Lions can learn from how the Bengals did it. Let's take a quick little recap at how Cincinnati got to where they are. Started with firing Marvin Lewis, and it was going to Zach Taylor. So that was the first step. Now, the Lions have already begun that step, and that was firing Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn and bringing in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. So they've begun that step. Now, they're currently in year 3 of Zach Taylor. We're now going into year 2 of Dan Campbell. So, you know, we're 2 years off here. It's easy to kind of forget that. Sometimes you think Zach Taylor's only in year 2, but no, he was there the year before. They also had Joe Burrow. So first year Zach Taylor comes in, wasn't a very successful season, won 2 games that season. Andy Dalton did not play in every game, but Andy Dalton regressed big time. The offense took a step back. They just struggled. They just struggled across the board. They went 2-14, not a very good year, and it ultimately led to them getting the top pick in the draft. Sort of similar, I guess, to the Lions a little bit here. I mean, you're a team that, you know, lost your quarterback, so theirs was injury. Ours was the trade. We end up losing more games than we did the year before, so kind of like them, and they end up with the 1 pick. We end up with the 2 pick. Now, they are different situations because there is no Joe Burrow in this draft. Now, Joe Burrow was ridiculous coming out of college. The guy had 60 touchdown passes. The only guy I see with better numbers than Joe Burrow is Bailey Zappi. But this dude was doing it at LSU, and he was winning a national championship. That led to them getting the first pick in the draft. And really, this is where things started to turn. Now, a very big important factor was that they were very patient with Zach Taylor. They were patient with him. and they understood the plan that he had in place, and that was a very big part, is that they were patient with him and his vision for the team. So they go 2-14. Dalton gets worse. We get to the offseason, the 2020 offseason, where they go out and they land Joe Burrow. I think it really does start with the draft. That's where you have to look at, especially with the Lions, because they've said they want to build through the draft. So we'll talk about that. But 2020 is where the big guy, the big name, Joe Burrow, comes into town. And Joe Burrow was the first pick in the draft for the Cincinnati Bengals. Then they followed it up with T. Higgins at the receiver position out of Clemson with the first pick in the second round. Then they followed it up with Logan Wilson, who I think I have a pretty interesting comparison to. We'll bring that up. They made a couple of splash signings this offseason. DJ Reader, Trey Waynes. Now, Wayne's contract maybe isn't going to work, and it looks like they're probably going to try to get off of that. And DJ Reader as well. That was one of the big deals. And they also brought in Von Bell. Not a super expensive contract here. Back for the New Orleans Saints, they bring him in to pair with Jesse Bates. So those were some of the major moves. Now, that season in 2020 was not a great year. As we said, they only won 4 games that year. It was also the year that Joe Burrow went down with injury. So Joe Burrow went down about 10 games into the season. They were 2-7-1 when he was the quarterback, when he started in 2020. So they weren't great. They ended up only winning 4 games on the year. Joe Burrow's rookie season wasn't anything really crazy. I mean, you saw flashes of what the guy could be. Statistically, it was nothing crazy. He played in the 10 games, had an 89 passer rating, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I mean, it was nothing crazy statistically. They didn't have a great season. They only won 4 games. They did win 2 games without him, which I think is really good sign. Like when you win 2 games without your starting quarterback, which the Lions really haven't been able to do. They were close this year, though. Tim Boyle almost got him too. You know, the Atlanta one where he threw the interception in the end zone, and then the Cleveland Browns one was pretty close as well. We didn't win those games, but at least we didn't get blown out. I mean, honestly, I know that's kind of off topic, but the point is they won 2 games without him. They went 2-7-1 with him. The stats were nothing crazy, but you saw the flashes of what Joe Burrow was going to be. In those 10 games that he played, he was sacked 32 times. That's over 3 sacks a game. That's a very big problem. Unfortunately, that's kind of what we looked like up until the bye week. But this is what led to kind of all the talk, all the draft talk. Should they go with Penei Sewell? Should they grab the top tackle in this year's draft? Or should they go with Jamar Chase, pair him back up with Joe Burrow, get this great weapon to add to some of the weapons that they already have here, including a T. Higgins who they just drafted this year? And a lot of the talk was they got to go get Penei Sewell. They got to go get Sewell. They got to protect Joe Burrow to give him time in the pocket. I remember all the memes, all the talk about this. I know I had Jamar Chase as my number 1 receiver, but there was a lot of talk about this because it's like you got to be able to protect your quarterback first. And I think there was rumors saying that the Lions might want Jamar Chase. Maybe they were just throwing it out there as a smokescreen. Who knows? The point is they ended up going with Jamar Chase. And at first, you know, there were some people that thought it was a terrible decision because of course, their pass protection from the past year, the injury that he was coming off of. And then you also add on top of that in the preseason, he was struggling. He's dropping passes. He was talking about, well, there's no stripes on the ball, so it's different now. And then, of course, we saw what he did during the regular season, maybe being the offensive rookie of the year. So it's like, okay, maybe it was the right decision. And here they are in a Super Bowl. So I think that pick alone does tell you a lot about the direction of each of these teams. And of course, I definitely think it worked out well for both teams. I mean, when you look at it, it worked out perfectly for us. But I think there's a lot to take away just from that one pick alone and just the direction that each team was going. And this is what the Lions are going to have to continue to stay true to. But it's what the Cincinnati Bengals did, I think, is what we can learn from going into our second offseason. It's what Zach Taylor decided on. He knew his quarterback was coming off an injury. But instead of going and taking the best offensive tackle in the draft with the 5th pick, and maybe he had a little more confidence in having a veteran Riley Reef over a rookie trying to protect him. Either way, instead of going with the top offensive tackle, he decided to go with a receiver. And that's just the style they are offensively. I mean, I remember back going to when we broke down this game, getting prepared for it this season. We were talking about, yeah, they can be a little bit predictable offensively, but they are so tough because they have really 3-4 receivers that can win one-on-one. You really can't cover these guys one-on-one. You even throw at a guy like Auden Tate. And that was the issue. They played a lot out of the gun, and you just struggled to cover because they had so many weapons. You couldn't double team everybody, so guys were getting one-on-ones. It led to Jamar Chase going crazy, and we see what they've done in the playoffs. That was their style. That's how they built this team. They went out free agency, and they did sign Riley Reef to a nice little deal. It was nothing crazy. It was like $6.5 million, but they did that. And that led to the Lions getting Penei Sewell. All right, now there was still talk there. The Lions should take a receiver. They should go get this receiver. But the Lions decided, no, you know what? We're going to get the top off the tackle. He fell to us. This is the guy that we really want. And I think what the Lions can learn and take away from that entire situation, be who you are, build that way. His strategy, his scheme was, look, we got to have these weapons. They're not going to be able to double team these guys. They're going to win one-on-ones. Joe Burrow, we're going to be asking you to pass the ball a lot. We're going to ask you to be this pocket passer. This is who we're going to go get with our top pick. I think PFF ranked at 20 on the year. No guy on that offensive line has played in every single game this season. I mean, they got players. Jonah Williams stepped up. He improved. Riley Reef was a solid signing when he's out there. The interior definitely needs some work. And I'm sure it'll be something that they address. But knowing you're going into this make or break year 3, you got your franchise guy coming off an injury, to make that decision to go get the receiver, and for it to be as successful as it is, the Lions can look in a year or 2 and say, hey, look, this is the type of team that we want to be. This is the type of team, and I've kind of touched on it before. The Lions are building a certain way. Every team has a strategy. You can win in tons of different ways. And the Lions are going 2 different directions on the styles that they're going to be playing. Penei Sewell worked out perfect for the Lions. I mean, think about this. Us drafting Jamar Chase at 7, he would have been great. He would have been our top receiver. And it probably been very beneficial, especially with the injuries that we had. But it probably wouldn't have been or made as much sense as getting a guy like Penei Sewell. It probably wouldn't have. Just because of the style that we're going to play. It just probably wouldn't have made as much sense for the future for the Lions to grab a guy like Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell with the 7th pick in the draft. If they were both available, it makes more sense to go get Sewell because of the way you're going to be building your team going forward. And that's the style you're going to play with. We saw the Bengals go out and do it as they said, look, this is how we're building this team. We're not going to tiptoe and say, okay, well, we got a receiver last year. We know how we want to play, but we're not going to go all in for it. There was a lot of talk about Sewell is that really he completed this O-line. But now it's emerging, well, we need some depth here, and we need some depth on the defensive line. So go in for that. I think you got to understand who you are, what you're going to build. I mean, this ain't Madden. You know, this ain't Madden. You have a scheme, you have a way you're going to do things, and you have a way you're going to operate. So go in for that. And I think that's one thing that we can definitely take away from Cincinnati and learn from with that decision to make that pick. They made some big signings in that offseason. Trey Hendrickson, the biggest one, 4 years, $60 million. Remember, there's talk about possibly the Lions trying to snag Trey Hendrickson. Now, the Lions possibly could have done that instead of re-signing Romeo Okwara, but they went the Romeo Okwara direction, which I'm completely fine with because Hendrickson's more of a hand-the-dirt defensive lineman. I think Romeo fits better for what they're going to try to do. They also brought in Mike Hilton, who, if I remember correctly, he was a late addition, like really late. I think he was available for a very long time to play slot, and he's played well. Chidobe Awuzie, they grabbed him on a 3-year, $21 million deal. Riley Reef, as we said. Eli Apple, who's become a starter. Not every free agent signing hit. One thing that I think did benefit them is that they had Marvin Lewis for a very long time. I would just assume it probably benefited them because when you make all the regime changes that the Lions make every 3 to 4 years, you're constantly restarting. You're constantly getting coaches, bringing out guys, bringing new guys in. You're stuck with dead cap, who that you signed before, and you're like, oh my gosh, we love him for this defense or this offense, but then you fire the coach and the guy's kind of stuck there. And you could do your best to try to make it work, but it's not your guy. And we saw that the Lions this offseason, they tried their best to make it work with the guys that they had. They tried. They had Jelani Tavai lose the weight to try to play the inside linebacker position. Fortunately, it just didn't work out. Not every position worked out. I mean, there was a lot of guys like that that tried to fit into this. It just did not work. Trey Followers is kind of the next guy that's probably going to end up being one of those players that's let go by the Lions in some shape or form, and we're likely going to have some dead cap that's stuck with that. And that's probably one benefit of the Bengals is that they had Marvin Lewis for so long. It was his team that it wasn't like, you know, it was, okay, 3 years, get rid of everybody, bring my guys in, sign these big deals, and all of a sudden I'm out of here. I think that was beneficial for them. And this really goes back to the very beginning for the Lions that I think, again, is the decision for Sheila Ford-Hamp when she hired these people to make that decision. Not go out there and hire a consultant like the Lions did before when they brought in Bob Quinn, is that she went out and she made the decision of who she wanted to hire. And we saw that the Bengals for the first 2 years, it wasn't going great, but they didn't panic. They trusted their coach, and he eventually got the thing turned around. Now, the Lions, again, they're in a different financial space, but I think it's a benefit when you go out there and you make the decision to hire your head coach and to go get your guy, because at that point, you really believe in the guys you hired. You did the background. You made the decision to hire him. It's not like some guy said, hey, I would go hire this guy. You made the hire, because then from Martha Ford's perspective, who was that owner when we ended up hiring Bob Quinn, she just looks at it and says, okay, we're not winning. I thought this was going to be better. It didn't work, so we're going to fire him. But Sheila Ford-Hamp made the decision to say, I want to go get this guy. I don't need his consultant for this. I'm sure they wouldn't have recommended Campbell anyways. This is the guy that I want to go get as my head coach. So they made that decision collectively, and I think that can allow you to be a little more patient because it's someone that you invested in. It's someone that you believed in. So you're going to understand when you hired them what their outlook was and that they're going to stick to that. So that's another thing. Of course, the whole Lions have to be patient with this, but as we said, you got to win games. I mean, at the end of it all, you have to find a way to football games, and it's like Brad Holmes said, 3 wins will never be good enough, and it's not good enough, and trust me, if they win 3 games next year, it won't be good enough. That's not okay. So I guess what would be kind of the game plan that I would look for this offseason as a whole? Well, the first game plan for me, I mean, you look at the financial space, we know where we are salary cap wise, looking at about $23 million in cap space, and there's certain ways to set things up. We're not the most financially wealthy team in National Football League. We don't have $70 million to go spend, right? We have what we had to spend, and we'll get to that. I think the first step, however, of course, it's figuring out the offensive coordinator position. If Aaron Glenn leaves, you'd have to figure out that. It'll likely be Aubrey Pleasant. I don't think he'll leave. You know, he wants to be the best DC here. I get it. If you get an opportunity to be a head coach, go be a head coach. I mean, that's where you want to get, so I understand it. I do think he'll be back with the Lions, but really figure out what we're doing at this offensive coordinator position. It's a spot where the Lions, they have to figure out where they're going to go with this, who that's going to be. And again, I have no issue if that's sticking in-house to making this decision, if it's going out-of-house making the decision, but it is going to be step one to really everything is figuring out who that's going to be. I mean, really the biggest talk this offseason wasn't about the splash free agent signing or going and drafting this guy. It was about the Lions coaching staff that they put together. Tons of former players, tons of guys with really good resumes like Aubrey Pleasant, and that's why they're getting interest. That's why guys like Aaron Glenn are getting interest even without having a very successful season, because we know what their backgrounds are and what they've done in the past. Todd Walsh. I mean, all these guys that we brought in, what they've done, we've seen it, and you're like, oh snap, they've done some work. Deuce Staley, that was a huge addition. So that'll be step one, is figuring out who's going to be the OC. And again, I have no issue if that's in-house because we saw how much the offense improved. If it's someone that's proven, if you want to go get someone like that, I'm perfectly fine with it. Without knowing who the offensive coordinator is going to be for the Lions, I'm sure it'll be very similar to what we saw last year in terms of just the overall style that they want to play with. I mean, Dan Campbell has told us they want to be a team that can run the ball. They want to take control of the football. They want to own the clock. And then at the same time, they want to be able to make those big plays in the pass game. They want to have those explosives. And we started to really see that as a whole come together after the bye week when we started to get some pieces back. We want to continue to build that direction of the style that you're going to build. Then you move on to free agency. And I wrote it the same way as I kind of would write doing the draft. Be who you said you were going to be in free agency. Stick to that plan. It's something that Brad Holmes has harped on, and he stated, hey, look, I learned to be patient. Stick to our plan, our multi-year plan. Well, with that being said, with free agency, that's where it's going to start. This is before the draft. And what Brad Holmes has told us and Dan Campbell is that they want to build through the draft, meaning that they're going to build, they're going to find their guys in the draft, they're going to load up on picks, which they did with the Goff and Stafford trade. But then on top of that, and being successful in the draft, because you have to be, he's a draft guy, they want to re-sign the players that they draft. They want to draft guys, they want to have them develop, be successful, and then re-sign those guys. And as a whole, I would say for the Lions, don't go out here this offseason. I have no issues with backloading a little bit because the cap continues to go up. But don't put tons of void years on there. Don't go crazy this year where you're putting so much money in 2023 and 2024 because you're trying to go make it happen this year and giving out all these short-term deals. I think it's going to be a huge offseason for re-signing players. That's where it's going to start. And there's some big names between Tracy Walker, Charles Harris, Alex Anzalone, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. We didn't draft any of these players, right? But these are guys that were on this team, and you can look at them and say, hey, you performed well, you played well in this defense, you did what we asked you to do, guys like Charles, things like that, and you can make the decision. Now, some of them you just may not be able to financially. You may want to bring back Charles, but if you're going to go out and make a big free agent splash, and then if you're going to draft an edge of the top two picks, you just may not be able to do it with Charles. So some of these, yeah, like Charles Harris specifically, maybe that. I think Tracy Walker is a lock to come back. There's certain guys on this team that stepped up. Not everybody. You got to improve. But re-sign those guys that you believe should be part of the future. Re-sign the players that in the biggest moments, the biggest stages, when you needed it most, when you need someone to make something happen, you trusted that guy to do it. You trusted to put him out there in a certain situation. He made the play. He came through. Re-sign those guys. Re-sign them. And we know as fans, who a lot of those guys are. First one, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Re-sign Jalen Reeves-Maybin. I don't think there's any way Jalen's not re-signed this offseason. He's going to have a chance to compete for a starting spot. Re-sign that guy. Because multiple strips in crucial situations, made the big plays when you need it most, gave you a shot. You could trust him to step up to the plate. The NFL plays tons of close games. We lost 6 close games last year. 6 of them, really close. Ravens, Falcons, Vikings. I mean, you had Dan Campbell crying, and I actually loved it because it just showed the emotion, how much he cares for this team. He cares for the players.
When you see your players give all that they have and you lose that way, it's tough. You know, you don't want that for them. So, but we'll be better for it.
Think about it like this. Would you rather have a guy that's crying after a game because he's so emotionally invested and he feels for the players? Or would you rather have a guy like Urban Meyer who decides, hey, we lost. I'm not even going to fly home with the team. I'm going to go to a bar. I'm going to have these crazy videos put out there on social media. There's a reason why one's fired and the other one has a fan base that's fired up. If you know what I'm saying. See how we did that? Re-sign those guys that you believe in those situations. Maybe they improve throughout the year, but you can trust in those spots. Tracy Walker. And he's also a guy that I think excelled in this scheme. If they excelled in what you try to ask them to do defensively, they can do multiple different things. If they played well in their roles and you expect that to be their role going forward, re-sign those. So Tracy Walker, Jalen Reeves-Maybin are high on my list. I think Charles is another guy that closed, but again, you just have to figure out the financial side of that and whether or not you're going to have the money to do it without doing crazy stuff. I think you could backload this deal a little bit. I think you could put like $4.5 million on this year and maybe bump it up to like $8 million in 2023. No issues with that. Not let Evan Brown be gone because he stepped up and he played well for you. Bring him back. Bring those guys back that stepped up in the big moments that you could trust to close games. Think about the Lions, right? Think about us in the past. Just go to the last regime. I think one issue with the Lions, because we played a lot of close games then too, we didn't always have a guy that would step up and close games for us. Amani closed games for us this year. You don't have to re-sign him. He can get an extension or something, but he's one of them. But remember with our past regime, we had the issues with players and some guys didn't want to be here. We ended up trading guys away. Some of our closers we ultimately moved on from. We moved on from some of our closers, whether that was a Slay or Diggs. And there's different reasons for it. But some of our closers we moved on from. And you don't really know who those guys are until you see it on the field. And there's certain guys that proved this year that they will step up for you in the big moments. Re-sign them. If the Lions stick to their plan, I think in theory it makes a ton of sense. Re-sign the guys that when you asked them to do certain things, they stepped up, they improved through the year, and you could trust them to put them on the field in big moments. For young guys, of course, they'll get better during the season. But if you continuously have turnover, you're signing 1 to 2 deals over and over, and to keep rotating guys in and out, you don't really know what you have in the player. How they're going to perform in this environment, this landscape, in a new place, in this scheme, with these guys around him. How will he perform when the lights are bright? With these coaches. If you continue to do that, you don't really know what you have. So if you re-sign the guys that have already shown you, hey, look, I'm going to be here when you need it the most, you continue that process, build through the draft, develop those players, re-sign your guys. And there's certain players out there that you can see and you're like, okay, he's that guy. I think there's certain moves you got to make, but especially when your cap is not ridiculously high where you have like tons of money, I would more focus on bringing my guys back, which guys I want back first. Then I focus on the rest of free agency after that. There's one thing that we really learned last season was that, number one, you need depth, and number two, where we have depth. We learned where we have it, and certain guys need to be resigned, like an Evan Brown, and we learned where we need depth. It's super important, especially in NFL now with COVID, but also injuries. You got to have backups everywhere, and you got to have guys that you trust and that they can step up. They don't have to be the most expensive. You just have to trust them, and it's very beneficial. We got a lot of young guys that got opportunities last year to show and prove, hey, I'm good. If I had to go in, I'd be okay. We got really every position we got to see the depth. Tight end, receiver, O-line, D-line. I mean, we got to see it everywhere, what the backups look like, even quarterback. So that was the beneficial part for us last year. A focus throughout the draft and free agency. Specifically, though, through the draft, I think the Lions should look at depth, especially once you get past, once you get to day 3, the Lions should definitely look to depth. They got 2 7th-round picks, 2 5th-round picks. Spots we do that. Backup offensive tackle, we got to have it. If we're going to be a run team, you can't tiptoe into it. Not only do you need another offensive tackle for, again, when they go to those 6 or sometimes even to 7 offensive line sets, but you also need it if a tackle goes down, whether it's COVID, injury, you got to have someone that you can step in. That's really do tell the entire story here, from wins to Goff's play to the run game. It tells you everything here with the offensive line. The difference between having Taylor Decker and not having Taylor Decker. And if we can't learn from that, I think we messed up big time. You have to be able to understand that, look, Taylor Decker, we're probably not going to go get a Taylor Decker because we're not getting the first-round offensive lineman. But we got to have a backup that we can trust behind Decker. And Nelson's cool for those 6th offensive lineman things, but at least bring him some competition. You can't just have that be that and be like, all right, hey, that's you. No, you got to at least give him some competition through the draft. The Lions on the season average 4.3 yards a carry. Much better than they have in the past. That's who you're going to be, so you better be great. You can't just be okay. If the Lions are just, hey, look, we're a run team, but we're just slightly above average at running the ball, you are in trouble. You can't do that. The San Francisco 49ers aren't slightly above average. They're great. The Bengals, they get Higgins. They get Jamar Chase. They're not just slightly above average passing the ball. They're great. Titans, they don't just run the ball okay. They're great with Derrick Henry. We saw last year, 4.3 yards a carry. That's not great. It's above average. It's a start. And we addressed it with the staff first. And that's why I believe OC will be similar. Deuce Staley, Anthony Lynn, Dan Campbell. That's what we were doing. I expect it to continue to be the direction they go. After the bye week, the Lions averaged 4.67 yards a carry, which was 7th in National Football League. That was when Decker was back. Now, keep in mind, some of this was without Penei Sewell, a little bit without Decker because they weren't playing every single game. So there's still some games that they missed. And typically, it's really the next couple weeks out of the bye week when we had Goff hurt and then we had Boyle, where the Lions just ran like crazy over the Steelers and Browns. They had to run, and they did. Browns have a good front four. We ran all over them. 4.67 yards per carry after the bye week. 126.7 yards per game after the bye week. That's 8th. You can see the numbers. 1,100 rushing yards after the bye week and 6 rushing touchdowns when Decker was back. So if that doesn't just tell you all you need to know that, hey, we have to have a better backup offensive tackle, we need better backup offensive linemen, I don't know what does. Evan Brown's good. Tommy Kramer stepped up, he improved. Jonah Jackson showed ridiculous versatility. The starting 5 is no question, it's there. Big V, way better second year, just being able to be one position. Jonah Jackson improved and he was versatile. Evan Brown proved he can be a backup. We know Frank's already about. Sewell played both tackle spots. The guy's fantastic. Decker plugged in, and he changed our offense completely. Same thing shows in the pass game, too. You see Goff's numbers. You see him at the bottom right. Goff since the bye week. 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, 208 yards a game, and basically a 102 pass rate. The guy was playing like a top 7, top 5 quarterback in the National Football League statistically after the bye week. If there's one thing you could give Goff to make him successful, it's not we need the best receiver group. It's not we need the best tight end. We need an offensive line. Every team is different. It's going to be built different. For Stafford, we got weapons. We got Megatron. We got Nate Burleson. For this, we need the best offensive line we can possibly get. Not just starters. We need backups to come in and be better than your defensive linemen. That's how we have to build this front for the Detroit Lions. And you saw Goff's numbers. When they said, hey, look, we're not asking to be the hero. We're not going to ask you to throw the ball 40 times. 3 times after the bye week, the Lions threw the ball in 25 times. They didn't do that once in the first half. Why? Oh, because they can run the ball now. Yeah, it helps when you can run the ball. This is how the Lions want to play football. They came out against Arizona, had an 8+ minute drive, and they landed a field goal. Not even a touchdown. 8-minute drive, and he got a field goal. That's how the Lions want to play football. You see what the run game's doing? You have to continue to address that. Pound that thing into the table. The priority is backup tackle at least. At very least, just give Matt Nelson competition. That's all I can ask for. I don't have Matt Nelson coming back, but just at least give him some competition. The Lions were 3-2-1 when Goff played after the bye week. 3-2-1. We had a winning record with Goff after the bye week. I know it sounds crazy. One game was Green Bay. 3-2-1. He would have been 4-2 if we had a field goal kicker, and he was hurt. That's including the Steelers game. Take out Steelers game, his numbers were crazy. His yards per attempt went up magically. What do the Lions want to be? Run the ball and get explosive plays in the pass game. You got explosive plays when you can run the ball. You don't have explosive plays when you can't run the ball. That's the focus. The numbers tell the story. It's not very difficult with that spot. And defensively, they need to improve everywhere. Levi's going to be a star next year. I can almost guarantee it. He's going to have to step up. They put a 2nd-round pick on him. They almost traded up to round 1. They believe in him. He's got to step up to be that guy. But don't just bank on that. Don't just bank on, well, he's got to step up, and if he doesn't, we're in trouble. Get backups. It's the same thing. Defensively, bully teams in the front 7. Bully them. Your cornerback, we're in a really good spot here. We have some of the best defensive backs coaches the National Football League has to offer with Aubrey Pleasant and Aaron Glenn, assuming he stays. You can't get much better than that. And what they've done is they've been able to take cornerbacks like Jerry Jacobs, like A.J. Parker. Parker's season wasn't great, but he was kind of on and off. Jerry Jacobs, iffy. You saw the improvement. I mean, he went from week 2, Brad said this, not being able to turn his head around, to week 18, getting his head around, deflecting it for Devontae, locking the guy up on a wheel route. Most least expensive cornerback rooms in the National Football League. Lions can address it, and I did a little bit. What the Lions need is that front 7 to be dominant. You can't be a worse run defense than you were in 2020. You have to stop the run first. Lions couldn't do that. Levi's going to be asked to step up. You know what Levi reminds me of? Logan Wilson. Everybody's talking about, well, Logan Wilson was so great for Cincy. But he only played 40% of the snaps in his rookie season. That's it, 40%. Does that sound like Levi? And then all of a sudden, the next year, they're like, you got to step up. You're that guy. We're putting you in the spot. He stepped up, and he was that guy. Lions got to continue to add depth to that, though. Don't just come in and think we're good. COVID, injuries. And plus, if guys are not at the level, you have to be able to put pressure on them at every spot. Rad said it best. We didn't put pressure on a lot of guys last year. Guys just did not feel pressure because there was no one behind them. That should not be the case coming in next year. You should have 10 draft picks at minimum. There's no reason you don't have pressure at every single spot for all of these young guys. You're just in a beautiful spot because all these young corners, Okuda, Amani, AJ, Jacobs, Melifonwu, that's 5 good corners. Like, I'm excited for that. It's super cheap, and they're all young. You got them locked up for multiple years. Mark Gilbert could be thrown in that. Sign one vet. I think the Lions can do that. Dominate on the D-line. Dominate in the trenches. The Lions, I mean, their motto should be, we're going to beat you in the trenches. We are a better trenches team on both sides of the ball than you are. I don't believe they're going to go crazy at off-ball linebacker or inside linebacker because they just haven't done it in the past. But I do think it could be a really good spot for a mid-round pick. Chad Muma has been mocked to the Lions a lot. I think he's a beautiful fit. If he was a round 3 pick, I always get him in my mock drafts because he would immediately play the Jalen Reeves-Maybin role. And if Jalen doesn't win his role, he can slide in to take that role. Either way, you got to stud at linebacker then. Just think about the Saints. Alex Anzalone was a 3rd-round pick for the Saints. Demario Davis was a 4th-round pick for the Saints. Quan Alexander was a 3rd-round pick. I believe I may have those two mixed up. The point is, mid-rounds is fine for off-ball linebacker at the earliest. I think the Lions jump on a guy like that, like a Chad Muma, who can immediately play the Jalen role. Because if there's one thing I could take from this offseason about the linebacker position, I believe Alex Anzalone is out. Shout out to Alex Anzalone. I was pumped when we got him. I would love to have him back, but I think he might be out. And the reason I believe that is because the Lions are going to be saying, look, Alex, thank you. Eric Barnes developed. We knew we'd have to. He only played linebacker for 1 year. But now, next year, he's going to be the guy. He's got to step up. Doesn't mean don't add competition. I think there's linebackers out there. There's a guy from LA that's going to become a free agent. His name is White. All right. He could come in and add some competition. Maybe just to back up Mike in free agency or the draft to push him. Have somebody behind him. Maybe bring back Alex. Jalen Reeves maybe can play a similar role. I think Sean Deon Hamilton easily could be that competition guy because he's cheap. He was going to be a starter last year. That guy. But Derek Barnes is going to be the starter next year. I almost guarantee that, Mike, because that's what they said when they drafted him. He's going to be the Mike. He just wasn't always ready for that last year. It took him time. He's only played linebacker for 1 year. Next year, it's your time. Like Logan Wilson, you're up, bud. This is you. You're holding that position down. We believe in you. And we saw so much improvement as the year went on. It may not show up in the stat sheet, but you can see it just by the film, how fast he was processing things. He's going to be that guy to me next year. I think that's why Alex is out. It was like, thanks, Alex. You helped. We needed you for a year, but now he's the Mike. He's the guy. And now we need a stud next to him. And I think a mid-round would serve perfectly for that. Safety, I think, was one of your most important positions. If you want to spend big money there, go for it. If you want to draft early there, go for it. Okay, now this is this little mock off season I put together, just kind of messing around with it. It's nothing super crazy, but I was just playing around with it. Kind of an idea of what the Lions could kind of do. So a quarterback, I didn't end up getting a quarterback. I'm not against drafting a quarterback. I know that's been the talk because Lions got to go get a backup. Look, Lions don't need to force quarterback. We hit it in the Senior Bowl video. Draft guys that you love. And if you don't love a quarterback, do not waste a pick on it. It's dumb. You are in a much better situation than about 10 teams in this league who probably don't have a quarterback next year. Don't force the pick. Don't reach for the pick. If you don't love him, there's absolutely no reason to draft one. If you love someone, you're like, dude, this guy could be the guy. We believe in it. Draft him. I mean, I got no issues with it. I think Goff can be the guy, but there's no issues with the competition anywhere. Draft the guys you love. Keep it short and sweet. I think Carson Strong could be a guy for that mix. I think he'd be awesome. Bailey Zappi. I think there's a lot of guys I can consider for it. I end up not getting one just because how the draft went. I got Garber as my backup. I picked him up as UDFA because he didn't get drafted. He's not even on the mock draft. Cal. So I thought he's a pro style offense. He could fit in this offense. And then I have Montez on the practice squad. I think because I had money over financially, I had about $15+ million in cap space. About 10 of that's going to the draft. I had money left over financially. Lions could go sign a veteran back if they wanted to. They would have the money to do it. If they want to go get a Trubisky, I don't know. If you want to go get more of a vet, a Mariota, if you want to get someone like that, they'll have the money to do it. I think there's nothing wrong with that. They want to bring in Tim Boyle because I do think Tim Boyle could definitely be back. I'm okay with it if you love one. It's just how the draft fell for me. It didn't make sense for me to push for one because I don't love every quarterback. I'm not just going to force it because it shows up on PFF's needs. Running back, I kept it the same. Godwin or UDFA will probably get the practice squad in this situation, but I really like our first four, and I have a lot of faith in Jermar Jefferson to take over Jamal Williams' role when he's gone. If you want to take running back, no issues with it. Again, if you love someone, take him. If Kenneth Walker's there on 3rd round, you love him, take the guy. No issue with it. But for me, I like Jermar Jefferson a lot. I believe in him, and I believe he'll take over that Williams role when he's done after this next season. So I'm cool with rocking with what we got and some competition for the practice squad for Godwin if you're going to bring him back as an exclusive rights free agent for the kick returner / speedy back kind of role. I'm cool with that. And I think there's a couple of guys in UDFA that you could hit. The tight end position, I did add another player to this, and this was my last pick in the draft, James Mitchell, a tight end out of Virginia Tech. Now, James Mitchell is an interesting one. I was trying to decide what kind of tight end I wanted here, and I could see the Lions was going with more bulky, maybe a little more size type of tight end. However, I went with a tight end that a little bit bigger than Shane Zylstra, who is 230. 245. He's a guy that's lined up everywhere. He was actually a team captain. He played H-back. I mean, he put up everywhere, out wide, in line, in the slot. The guy can line up everywhere on the field, but he also does bring a blocking prowess that I don't necessarily know if a guy like Hunter Bryant brought. Hunter Bryant was a little bit smaller, I believe, more of like a receiver than anything. This is a guy that will block, especially as a zone blocker. So I ended up bringing in a tight end here. Now, because it's this big in the draft, this could end up being a practice squad player. I'm not necessarily sure if he'd make the final roster or not. I did bring Brock Wright back, so someone's probably hitting practice squad in this situation. Maybe Brock Wright is more likely to hit that. than a guy like Williams. Either way, with where I was in the draft, I did want to add some competition. Now, I did think about not doing this because I do have Jason Cabinda coming back. I was like, well, Cabinda gives us some of that, but I just wanted someone to push, and someone that, something happens, Hawks on COVID, or, something like that happens. We need more of a pass-catching threat of that position. Cabinda, I think, improved a lot in that area, but more of just a dynamic pass-catching tight end. I think Zylstra was kind of that piece when they needed him to be, but he didn't necessarily step up to the plate like we were hoping he would. I think he got better as the year went on. So I brought in Williams in this situation. Receiver, made 2 picks here. Drake London was my second first-round pick, and I also got Trey Turner. Now, Trey Turner is, in this situation, kind of a Khalif Raymond replacement, but I have no issues bringing back Khalif Raymond. Trey Turner is an interesting one because I think he's a really good route runner, but at the same time, he's also kind of played a lot of the Z role, a lot of the slot, a lot of things behind the line of scrimmage. He's very comfortable with the ball in his hands. He does give me some Amon-Ra St. Brown vibes, which, you can't have enough guys like that, I think, what the Lions were trying to do. Any blocks. But if you want to bring back Khalif, because you make this decision before the draft, bring back Khalif. I got no issues with that. I brought him back on mock-off seasons before. So bring back Khalif if you want to bring him back on cheap. It'll just be what he wants. I think a 2-year deal would not be a bad decision for him. I did bring back Josh Reynolds. Only 1 year because I don't need him for long-term. I think Cephas can be my X going forward. And next year I can draft another receiver. And Trinity Benson could also be in play here. It's really, I'm not sure. I just put him on here because Brad Holmes said it was for 2022. So we'll see what he can do. O-line. There's my big one. Kellen Diesch, I think that's how you say his name. Diesch, I don't know how you say his name. Arizona State tackle. I've watched him a lot, though, and I really like the guy. I got him at the very beginning of 5th round. I think the 5th round I got him is, our first pick in the 5th round. I like him. Arizona State, he's very versatile. They've seen him in practice play guard, tackle. They've seen him play everywhere. He, to me, can be a developmental starting right tackle or a guy that can play both sides. A really good bend at the knees for a guy at 6'7". He is a guy that's always looking for work. He sticks through guys throughout the entire play. He's way more athletic than you would think, which makes me believe he could play that 6th offensive lineman role. So that was the guy. I went higher than that. I'd taken an offensive tackle in the 3rd round. But because of how the draft fell and because I wanted to get certain guys, I didn't force it. I said, hey, I like enough players at tackle that I'm okay with waiting here. He could end up being a starter for somebody, I think, at some point. Defensive line, 2 additions. Logan Hall. It was my, Actually, this might have been my second first-round pick or is my second-round pick. I can't remember, but I got Logan Hall. What does Brad Holmes say? We want to write that name down on the card, and we all want to be excited for it. That's what I am with Logan Hall. May have to bulk up a little bit, but I think he can play 5 tech. I think he obviously can play 3 tech because he did in college. I know he's only 275, but he dominated at that role. I know it was Houston, but his leverage. I mean, there's everything to love about this dude. First things first, stop the run. I think Logan Hall becomes a really good player at that because he can control his gap. Even if you put on a little more pounds, he could. And he's got versatility playing on the edge. Just think he's way better on the D-line. I have a video on it if you check it out. And I brought in LeBron Ray. I've done this a few times, one of my last picks. Look, you go other options here. I went with a big body that can hold 2 gaps. Again, can play the 5 tech, can play 3 tech at Bama. Explosive first step. He's got a long way to go as a pass rusher in development, but he's explosive and he can hold 2 gaps. So you want to stop the run first? He's an early down run defender. I'm cool with that. And it was a 7th round pick. And then it's Cornell versus Hector at that point. Levi stepping up, he's going to be a starter. McNeil, he's going to be a starter. And Brockers, those guys with Hall, rotate. We need rotation here. We need versatility here. And I think the 2 guys that I got bring you that. Logan Hall is ridiculous. He's a stud. Outside linebacker. Now, this one's weird. I end up getting Hutchinson. A lot of times it gives me Kayvon. It gave me Hutchinson the last time I did it. I do have money left over. I mean, you can't have $0. You can't like, hey, look, we got the draft, but now we have $0. Like, I have things that come up during the year. You have to have some money. But I do have money left over. Looking at the final roster with the moves that I made. So, a guy like Charles Harris, wouldn't it be impossible to bring him back? You could actually do it, especially if you set up a guy like Tracy, because for his deal, I just made it the same every year. Lions don't have to do that. If it's, I think for him, it was $7.56 million. It was something like that a year. For him, you could make it like $5 million this year. And the next 2 years, it could be $8 million a year or like $8.5 million a year. You could do something like that, save $2 million, save $2.5 million for this season, and then go to Charles Harris and kind of do a similar thing. Only pay him $4.5, $5 million for this year and get him back for depth purposes. I used Hayward kind of an example here because I used a mock free agency thing to sign free agents. I ended up getting Hayward on a 1-year, $4 million deal. So that would be a fine contract. The thing is with Hayward is I could easily see his contract getting much more expensive. Just looking at the fact that he was a starter last year, coming off a good season. I know he's like 32, 33. Not necessarily signing a guy to be like, hey, you're my starter. Now, that doesn't mean I want to sign a vet that's bad and be like, hey, this guy's not good, but he's old. No, I just might as well play the young guys at that point. I would just want a vet that's proven, that I know could step up, play in this scheme, and I know what he's going to bring to the table. Hayward may be more expensive than that. We tried it with Dunbar last year, didn't really work out. So I just use an example of Hayward. Now, if you don't sign a guy like Hayward, financially, you could make it work where Charles Harris could be brought back. For Charles Harris, I projected 3 years, 22 mils, what the Lions were offering him. Something like that could easily make happen, especially if you put his cap hit this season much lower. You can make it happen because then I'd have about 19 million in cap space without even, moving around Tracy's deal or anybody like that, just keeping it very basic throughout. I'd have about 19 million in cap space. So I would realistically have about at least 7 mil to put in as a cap hit for this year for Charles Harris. So I could make something like that happen, have Charles Harris, and I would love that. You want to talk about dominating the trenches? Charles Harris, Romeo Okwara, Aiden Hutchinson, Julian Okwara, Austin Bryant. That's a scary, scary front that you're going to have to face up against, including that monstrous defensive line. That's awesome. But if you want to get a vet corner, I get it. I don't think it's necessary because Will can play corner. I get it. Look, no one on there pops out as like, oh, that's the vet of the group. You don't need a vet to the group if they're playing well. It's just like, why sign an old guy just because he's old if he's not good? If Jerry Jacobs is better than the old dude, well, I would decide the old dude. So at that point, I put Hayward on here as an example because I was able to get him 1 year, 4 mil. But if I didn't get Hayward, financially, I can make it work with Charles Harris is back. And I think building a dominant defensive front would be where I'd lean towards personally. But Hayward's reliable. Maybe there's another vet out there like that. I just didn't see anybody that really popped out to me. A linebacker, Chad Muma, and then I also brought in Ellis Brooks out of Penn State. I think he could back up and push a guy like Derek Barnes. Yes, they're both young. I don't think there's an issue with going with a vet here, but I have Shawnee Hamilton, who I believe is the vet of that group. So Shawnee Hamilton, to me, is a vet. Jalen Reeves-Maybin's been in the league for years now. I think both those guys give you experience, and Barnes can be asked to step up and start. So I think I have enough experience in this group. Our guys that I like, again, my guy out of LA, he was in the Brandon Staley defense this past year. He was really good. I like him a lot. White, Alexander Johnson, great run defender. He's just an early down defender. He's not super athletic, though. Devondre Campbell's going to be a free agent. I just think he'll be kind of expensive, but I went with Brooks late in the draft. Then at cornerback, see UDFA Josh Williams. What is that? Okay, so Josh Williams is an FCS player. He was a Division II player. Then in high school, as a senior, he went from playing receiver to the cornerback position. He's long. He's lanky. 6'2.5". He's a physical corner that will come down and hit. He's a developmental outside corner is the way that I see him, but he'd be the first player drafted from a school in 40 years. Which is awesome. He can be part of history here. Thinking about drafting him, but he ultimately went undrafted. Again, this was according to the Draft Network. So I scooped him up as a UDFA. Again, it's just kind of just playing around with it a little bit. Like, hey, this is someone I'd scoop up as a UDFA. I could see drafting him, but I ultimately went with the tight end with the last pick because I didn't think he would make it out of the draft. Really doesn't matter. I think either one's fine here, but I'm going to just say I picked him up as a UDFA and I put him on the practice squad. Now, Mark Gilbert, I think, is also a very solid option, but if they can go get their guys a little bit more size, they may choose to do that instead. And I think what we saw from Jared Jacobs and AJ Parker, a UDFA in the cornerback room, it might just be all right. So that one's just mainly for depth purposes. But you don't even need to do this with Hayward, Melifonwu, Jacobs, Parker, Oruwariye, and Okudah because that's already 6. Plus you have Will Harris who played cornerback as well. So it's not necessary, but I just wanted to point it out because I did like him. And I was like, hey, I'll just throw him on there. I think you consider going with more of a slot hybrid here. I get that because of an AJ Parker backup. I consider that too. I just really like the idea of Williams. I haven't seen a ton of tape on him because it's kind of hard to find it. But from what I've seen, I do like the guy. He stood out in Division II. Hayward, not necessary, but if you did want to go with a backup corner for a vet experience, there's multiple guys, Patrick Peterson, guys like that. We tried Dunbar last year. I went with Hayward. Casey Hayward's going to have to be kind of cheap. I didn't want to spend a lot. I think I ended up giving him $4 million to make this happen. But Casey Hayward, to me, he's coming off a fantastic season. He plays a cover 3 defense, which is where Amani was ridiculous last year. Cover 3, the guy allowed like a 60 passer rating, if you didn't know. Cover 1, it was like a 40 passer rating. He's ridiculous in those two things. Hayward plays that same defense. He's a tackler. He's a little bit undersized, but he's a vet to that group that I know what I can get. He's usually healthy, and he was fantastic last year with the Raiders. So if the price comes down, I'm perfectly fine with a cheap deal there to get a vet that I can trust. And then I wrapped it up with the safety position. This is where I made it interesting. Tracy Walker's a re-signing. I didn't. A lot of times I go Marcus Williams. Sometimes I'll even go Jesse Bates if he comes available. I just don't think he will. I love it. I'm cool with spending big money there. Then I probably wouldn't have Hayward, but I'm cool with it. However, this time I mixed it up. I went with McKinley out of Oregon. I got him in the with the 111th pick, I think it is, in draft. Vernon McKinley III. Guy's a stud in the back end. I mean, he plays a perfect scheme. He's a split coverage safety. He can slide down, play the slot a little bit. He can hit. Very big hitter. He's violent. A little bit short, but he does have 6 interceptions this past year. He balled out, and plus we seem to love Pac-12 players. And then I ended up signing Jordan Whitehead. Now, Jordan Whitehead's weird because I already have the safety. But I signed Jordan Whitehead because I didn't spend a ton at I didn't go really get a big name free agent. Plays a little bit of that box role in a cover 3 defense. Fantastic run defender. Great man coverage for tight ends, slots. And he has shown very occasionally to play in split coverage or play the deep safety. He seems his best, though, in the box. So I brought him in as a, hey, look, we could probably push you back. He's very similar to Von Bell, and the Saints used Von Bell, and he was good there. It's kind of like Malcolm Jenkins, too. Jenkins did play a little bit more deep. But you can start if Vernon McKinley's not ready. If McKinley's ready, you could be kind of that sub-package safety. I brought him in a 2-year, $6 million a year. It's what PFS projected him, so that's what I gave him. And then Will Harris, he gives you cornerback, safety versatility. So I'm a Will Harris fan. And I brought Seibert back because he did make a 50-plus yard kick against the Vikings. It doesn't really matter, him or Patterson. The rest of special teams stayed the same. So that is my mock offseason. That's kind of how I went through it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But overall, I think that's the game plan for the Lions this offseason as a whole without going into specifics. That was just kind of for fun. We'll do more of these specifically. I have one with me and Brad that we're going to upload soon. But this one was just kind of for fun, just kind of give you an outlook on how I would address it. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm